So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through a 1 versus 8 scenario. So I'm flying the P-38J here, and to be honest, the 38J isn't a bad plane. It's just that there are far better planes that can do what it does and do more on top of it. So you don't see it played or used that often. But as you can see here, it's gonna get the job done because it can do it. So it's a twin engine fighter, you get air spawn, very good boom and zoom characteristics. Energy retention is pretty good. The difference between this and the L is that the L has a far better roll rate and also has access to dive brakes as well, air brakes, which is quite helpful once you get to really high speeds in the dive. The controls tend to lock up, so you need something to kill your airspeed just a bit enough to get guns on targets and then zoom away. But in a 1 versus 8 scenario, you can't just play your aircraft's strengths against the enemy's weaknesses. You're going to have to push the limit of its performance because you're going to be put in situations where your aircraft is not designed for, but you're still going to have to perform either way. And we're going to see a very good example of this at the very end, where we have to get down and dirty and do some actual dogfighting in 38. So it's about 4 minutes into the match and the whole team's dead. There's nothing much you can do about that because it happens, right? Random battles, teams will just completely collapse. In the 38 here, I've already got good position. As you see, I've knocked out 3 guys here. These were the highest aircraft on the enemy team in terms of altitude. So they automatically are the priority threat. There's no point in trying to attack enemies that are lower than them because then you'd just be giving the enemy aircraft that are at altitude an advantage. You're giving them the initiative basically, because with altitude comes initiative. You know, it's, for props that is. In jets, its speed gives you initiative, but we'll discuss that at another time. So when you get to the endgame situation here, what usually happens is that the enemy will just sort of break up because, as I've said before in other videos, there is no coordination or communication in online games. It just does not happen. So what everyone's mindset is basically, oh, there's only 2 guys left on the enemy team. I did say it was a 1 versus 8. Technically it is a 2 versus 8, but it's just a PE8. He does make a play towards the middle of this video, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to be me doing most of the heavy lifting here. But yeah, as I was saying, when you get to the end game situation like this, and people just see 1 or 2 guys left on the enemy team, they just sort of like, okay, the game's basically over. I'm going to do what I can do to get more lions and RP. And if you're someone like me who's crazy enough to say, okay, it's a 1 versus 8, I can win this. You have the element of surprise basically, because no one really expects anyone to even attempt it, and that in of itself gives you an advantage. Now the reason why I say that I'm going to attempt it is, as I said in a previous video where I did a 1-on-5 in a Phantom, I've been in this situation so many times. I know that if I get certain, if the cards are dealt just right in a situation, I know that victory is attainable, and I'm gonna try and attempt it. So making that first decision basically is the first step you need to take if you want to win a situation like this. How you develop that kind of confidence, like I said, you just have to play the game long enough to be put into such situations that you then start getting the experience. So we've knocked out 4 guys that were at high altitude, and now we've got 335s. There's 1 here that I'm trying to engage, and I whiff 3 attacks on this guy. Bad aim, it happens. The other 335 isn't a particularly good player. He hasn't quite ended the fight yet, but he will be coming in and he will be making a very big mistake. But yeah, at this point, the reason why we have to get low now and sacrifice our altitude is the ticket situation. This is a mistake that I see other people when they try to attempt it, is that they think that, okay, I'm in the 38, I've got the altitude, I have the initiative, everyone else is low and slow, and they're all split up, I can take my time. Not always the case. In this situation right here, we do not have the option of playing the long game. We have to kill the enemy right now, because they're all, as I said, they're trying to get RP now, so they're just ground pounding. They're not attacking the ground units to win the game on tickets. They're just trying to get the RP. It just so happens to be that this is the best strategy for them to end the game right now. As I said, there is very little communication or coordination that happens in online war games, especially War Thunder. So that's what's going on. Now, yeah, we're still not able to kill the 335, but we're about to get good hits on it here. They're still all isolated, so I can afford to take my time here, and I'm fairly confident that no one's actually going to come help this guy, except for the next 335 that's about to enter the fight here. This guy right there on the right. Just because, as I said, they're busy trying to just be greedy and get the points. Now, this is the one play that our friendly bomber makes that helps us out. He just, by flying low and getting shot at, basically lines us up for this 335. As I've said before, the first big rule of teamwork basically is just to show up to get shot at, so that the enemy isn't shooting at your other friendlies. So, in a sense, the P-8 here has done more for me than the entire friendly team has up to this point in the whole game. Just by showing up and getting shot at. So props up to him. So we've hit the 335 here. We better finish him, because their secondary airfield is just off to the left here behind that mountain range, and he's already hurt bad. I don't want him coming back. We've already hit a P-63, and I'm keeping in my mind at this point in the game that he's already gone back to the airfield and he's repairing. So he'll be coming soon, at least a minute or two before he's taking off again to try to kill us. So I need to knock out this guy before he comes back. Because if I get stuck in a 2-on-1 situation at this low altitude right now, because we've already burned up all of our advantages, it's not going to end well. So I finish up the 335 here, and we're going straight for the secondary airfield. We're not, like I said, we don't have the time to play the long game. At this point in time, the latest update regarding how AI aircraft don't bleed tickets by hitting the ground targets, that hasn't been implemented yet. So yeah, we are on a strict timer here, and there's the 63. So here we're gonna have to dogfight him. We don't have any options, and I do not recommend anyone else flying a 38 to take a low altitude dogfight against 63. But yeah, if you do end up in a situation, here's how you deal with it. At the 38, you have slightly better energy retention, and you also have a slightly better roll rate. Your roll rate is not as good as the 38L, but it's good enough against the 63 here. And if you want to win the fight like this, you have to make sure you make no mistakes. And I get lucky, not because I make no mistakes, it's just that this guy makes a really big mistake. I think he either panics or knowing that it went from a 1 versus 8 situation to a 1-on-1. So yeah, he makes a big mistake here, and that allows me to get in behind him. With the 38, the 63 is slightly more maneuverable, so you're going to see me do some maneuvers with the rudder to just help me get slight angles on him. But of course, after that last shot here into his engine kills his performance, so it does give me a very big advantage. But in the event that you don't get a good shot like that in early on in the fight, use your rudder. You get you a couple of angles here and there. And then we lighten up, and that's the end of the game. Yep, that is a 1-on-8 situation.